All right, everybody, welcome back to the series and to part 35, if you can believe it, and good on you for getting to this point. This is going to be, I'll just warn you up front, a little bit of a heavier one. It'll be kind of light on coding. There's not a whole lot we need to do to the UI to get ourselves to the point where we can click on these cards and go to an edit screen and be able to save that. But a little heavy on the theory. We're going to make some changes here, and I want to kind of explain the decision-making process behind what went on into each one of those changes to the code. So some of you have told me you've binge watched these until 2 or 3 in the morning. If you're doing that and you get to this one, maybe go to bed and get a good night's sleep and start fresh with this one. So I don't mean to scare you, but there's just going to be a lot more theory in this one and a little bit less coding. So here we go. We have to just do a number of things in order to get this to the point where we have a full edit process. One of the things we need to do, you may have noticed, when you come in here, you add the product, we get a add product message down here, or the product was saved in the debug console, but it doesn't actually pop the screen. So we need a strategy to pop this screen off. We are going to need a service from Firestore to go and get a single product. We're going to want to add a constructor to the edit product page so that when we go here, we can potentially pass in a product ID so this page knows that this is an edit and not an add. We're going to need to modify the root file a little bit so that we can actually pass a product ID through the root. We're going to want to set up a future builder on this page so that if it is going to look up a product from the database, that we allow it time to do that and do something in the interim until that happens. We're going to want to add a product to the backend or the block so that when we're editing, we can make comparisons to what's been entered versus what was originally there. And if there are values that we're not actually editing on the screen, like vendor ID and stuff like that, that we can grab that from that product. We're going to want to add an initial text to this text field. So when we come in and edit, we want to let the controller know that it should update its values so that all the existing values appear here. And we're going to want to modify our validators a little bit so that when we come into edit product, leave, come back and try to add a product, that we can actually clear out the back end. So that's what we have to do to get it to the edit phase. It sounds like a lot. It's actually not. But like I said, I'll take it slow. We'll explain it step by step. And I may split this into 2 parts or 3 parts if it starts to get kind of long and heavy. So with that introduction, let's get started. All right, challenge 1 is to pop this page whenever we add a product, and that sounds fairly easy, but remember, we are disconnecting our back end from our front end, and the save product, if we go to product block, happens here in the block, and then we're just kind of logging product saved. And so we need to either send a signal to our user interface that this is completed or log the error somehow. And so we can do that with a variable in our product block that we can then listen to, and then the user interface can pop the screen from there. So let's create a new variable up here, and let's create a final, and we're going to create an underscore product saved. And that's going to be a Boolean that we can pass true to if the product has been saved. And I am going to use an equal sign, of course, but here I'm going to use a publish subject instead of a behavior subject. And the reason I'm going to do that is that a behavior subject stores values. And remember, this one page is getting reused. It's going to look like an add product form. It's going to look like an edit product form with all the values loaded, but it's all one page, and we're just reusing these variables over and over and again. So they are storing the last value that they have. And we want that for the unit type, unit price, available units, because we use it in save to grab the, where are we here? To grab the last value. So when you call a behavior subject.value, it's going into its cache and it's grabbing the last value that it got through the stream. We don't have that on a published subject, so if we use published subject for all these fields here, we wouldn't be able in our save product to call the value and get the last value to pass to Firestore. Published subject, we don't have that value, and so every time we listen to it, it starts as a blank slate. And we won't get a value until we add something to the sync. And that's what we want here. So if we're going to have a listener back on the page, we don't want that to pick up the last message that was sent from the last time we were in the page. We want it to have a fresh start every single time. So that's where we're going to use product or published subject there. We want a getter because we are going to have a listener on this. So let's have a stream of type Boolean that is getter, and it is listening for product saved. And we will just pass it the product saved stream. All right, we don't need a setter because we have no desire to set this outside of the block. But we do want to set it here. We've got when we return or when we save our Firestore record, we get this function right here, which we were just printing to. But now we can go product saved dot sync dot add and true. All right, and here we can also add product saved dot sync dot add, and we'll add false in case of an error. And we're not going to worry about that case right now, but it won't actually pop the screen. So now that we have that variable in our block, what do we do with it? Well, we can go to screens, edit product. And right now we just have a build method, but we did build this as a stateful widget intentionally because we knew we'd have some need for it down the road. And so let's give ourselves an init state method. And inside there, let's listen for that save or product saved variable. So I'll create, first of all, I'll bring in the block. So we'll do a var product block equals provider. Whoops. Been batting around which Udemy course I should take next. I maybe should take a typing course. All right, and anytime we bring in a provider in a init state, we do want to say listen equals false, or else we'll get an error. Because the init state only happens once, and it doesn't make sense to sit there and listen to it, and Flutter will object. All right, so we can do product block dot product saved, and then we can put a listener on that. So as soon as we come into this page, it is listening for, I'm going to change this event to saved. Might as well throw my semicolon there and hit enter and create a space there. And so if saved is not equal to null and saved is true, I want to leave this page. So this is how we're going to tell it, this is your time to pop the page and go back to the product page. All right, so we click save. If the save is successful with Firestore, it's going to populate the product saved with true. This is going to be listening to that the whole time, and as soon as that value is not null and it is true, the context is going to pop. So let's give that a shot right now. Let me see what I got here for. I got corn, potatoes, potato, apples. All right, let's add some beets. And I'm going to sell beets singly. Is that a word? Singular like for $1. I got 10 of them, and I saved the product, and there's my beats, and we have popped the page. So that part is complete. All right, so now what if I want to go back and I decided that beats are really good and they're worth a lot more than $1? I need to be able to click on this card and have it carry me back into the edit page, which is also our add page, but have it be in an edit mode with all those values preloaded. So there's really two Dart files that need this information when I go in there. I've got the product block, so that's the back end. That needs to know what values it should load up to the state, and then the edit product page is going to need to know what values to put here in the text field because they are independent of each other. So we have the text field values and we have the back end values. When you add a product, the back end starts out blank and you start typing, and the text field updates the back end with every type. When you come into this page with existing values, you don't get the benefit of those being automatically in sync to begin with because they have values. And so you're going to have to independently load the text field and the back-end values in the block. So one approach there might be when we click on a card, we send the block a product and then have a listener that listens here on this page and updates those values in the text field. What I don't like about that approach is that it involves two steps. So first of all, we're going to have to send the block a product, and then we're going to have to navigate to this page here. I would rather have this page be able to operate independently and not be reliant on me always doing those two things in subsequent order. So in other words, back here in this widget, I have to first say, go ahead and change that product in the block, and here's the product I want you to use, and then I go and navigate to the page. I can't in my navigation route pass an object. I can pass an ID, but not an object. And so I'm kind of stuck with those two subsequent commands always being done 1 to 2. And if they're not done in that order or the first one is left out, then this page is left confused. And I don't like that. So what I would rather do is pass the product ID in the root to this edit product page. And if this edit product page receives a product ID, it is an edit. This page will be fully empowered to go to the Firestore database and get that record and load it up. If it doesn't get the ID, it's going to assume it's an add product, and this will be blank. So it might seem a little wasteful because we already have a list of products to go back to the Firestore database to get that information. But for me, that's worth it so that this widget is independent and doesn't rely on prerequisite functions being called before I navigate to it to function properly. And how often are people going to be switching back and forth and adding products in here as a vendor? That's probably going to be a relatively minor thing. In the customer side, we'll have a list of products probably similar to this, and we'll be able to directly pass that product over to here because over the detail page when they add it to a cart or something, because we won't be directly editing it. And that's going to be a much more common operation, and I would not necessarily want to be going back to Firestore for that operation. But for a vendor editing their product, I'm okay with it. All right, so now that I've talked that to death, we are going to need, if we follow that pattern, we're going to need to go to Firestore and get a single product based on an ID. So let's go to our services and let's go to our Firestore service and let's create ourselves a function to do just that. So we have add product here. I am going to, after that, add future product, fetch product. And my parameter is going to be a product ID, and that I can get from the root. So we'll return DB. Let's do .collection, and the collection, of course, is going to be products. And the document is product ID. That's the way we set that up. We're going to do a get. That will give us a future. And let me wrap that. All right, so that's going to give us a snapshot. We'll call snapshot. And then we can fat arrow that over, and now we can call our product model and our from Firestore factory constructor, which will turn snapshot.data, which is a map, into a product item. And that should be get. Oops, I forgot a then there. So this should be get.then. And there should be another wrap there, and then that should do it. All right. So just like that, collection, document, that part's easy. The .get, make sure you get the opening, closing parentheses, and then a .then, and then we get our snapshot, and we send that snapshot.data to product.firestore. All right, so we're all set to look that up from Firestore. So let's go to our screens, edit product, and let's give ourselves here a constructor so that we can accept a product ID on this page right here. So up here at the top, we want a final string product ID, and we will create an edit. Oops, I need to go up here. Sorry about that. Up here in edit product, and then so we want an edit product constructor. And we'll give it a name constructor because we do want it to be able to omit this value if it's an add. Okay, so we can accept this value. So let's go to our root or routes file and fix this or make a change to the routes so that we will be able to pass in a product ID when we call that widget. And so let's start in material. We're going to go down here to the default route. And what I want to do in the default route is create ourselves a variable called root array. And that is going to be of settings.name.split, and we're going to split by a slash. All right, so now we can create ourselves a series of if statements. We only need one right now, but we might need more going forward. And so we're going to take if settings.name.contains edit product and also another slash. So that would be the case where we go edit product slash product ID. In that case, we're going to return a material page route with a builder and a context, and that context is going to go to edit product. But into that edit product, we are going to pass our product ID, and we are going to get that from root array 2. So this is 0, edit product is 1, and whatever we put after the slash is root array 2, and that's where we'll put our product ID. Cut that space there. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to take it down to the Cupertino roots. And I'm just going to change the material to Cupertino, and we are in business there. All right, so now from our products page, we should be able to call edit products slash product ID. We can go into edit product, and that can receive this product ID. And we have a Firestore service to fetch it. Now, I don't want to directly call Firestore from here. I want to continue with the pattern that I have set of using the block as an intermediary. So I'm going to set up the ability to just point to that Firestore service in my product block, so I don't have to independently bring in the Firestore service into that edit or that product, edit product screen. And so I'm just going to give myself a getter here, and I'm going to make it a future product, and I'm going to call it fetch product. And I'm just going to pass the string product ID. This is just a pass through, and I'm just going to call fetch product db fetch product ID like that. And that way I don't have to reach into my service from my widget. I can use this product block as my intermediary. All right, so in the edit product page inside the screens, I want to do some cleanup here. We have a stream provider set up, and we have a consumer down here, and we are streaming authblock.user, but we have since given ourselves the ability to pull the user ID as a string from the auth block by pulling from the value of the user item. And the user object gets changed whenever we log in, log out. We've taken care of that. And so we really don't need this stream builder here and the consumer widget, and it's just cluttering things up. So let's come back to edit product and let's factor those out. And really just all I want to do is take out the stream builder, or stream provider, I should say. And so let's take everything before platform.ios up to stream provider, and let's get rid of that, and we should just be able to get rid of one parentheses, and that's gone. We can keep the auth block. We are going to need that for now. And then the consumer widget, if we come down here to consumer user, we want to come in right above list view. And we want to take that right back through to consumer, take that up to return. And then if we slide down here to the bottom, we need to eliminate one of these curly braces. We can take out this container and this colon, and I think this parenthesis as well, and that should do it. Let me reformat that. All right, so that looks pretty good there. Now, when we load up this page, we may have a product ID passed in, which tells us we should go get that product from Firestore and load those values to the screen. So let's come up here to the build method, and let's build ourselves a future builder. And let me get the type in there. That's going to be of type product. And I'm going to move the builder down to this line, and I'm going to put the future right here. And the future is going to be product block.fetchProduct. And we want to pass it our widget.product ID. And our builder is going to be a context and a snapshot. And we want to take the return, and we'll put the return in front of future builder. And so we don't need this return anymore. And we're going to take this whole block here with the platform.isIOS, everything inside the build method, and we're going to move it inside the builder. So this doesn't happen until the future has returned a value or not. I'm going to bring in that product model. Just going to code format that. So inside of this future builder, we may not get a value back, or we may not yet have a answer from the future. So if not snapshot dot has data, and also the widget dot product ID is not equal to null, because that's what it's going to be in an add situation, we are going to return a spinner. So let's return a center, and the child of that can be conditional based on platform.isIOS. And if it is iOS, we're going to want to return the Cupertino activity indicator. And that should be that. And also should have opening and closing parentheses there. And otherwise, we're going to return the circular progress indicator like that. Cupertino, let's see, I must have spelled something wrong. Cupertino activity indicator. There we go. And I need to close that. I'm all over the place here. All right, so if we're expecting a product to load, which would be the product ID would not be null, that would indicate that we're editing, and the snapshot hasn't returned anything yet, we're going to give this indicator. If it is an add, the product ID is null, and it's just going to skip this. All right, and so if we get down here, we're going to return the page body. And this space here gives us a spot to do what we need to do, which is to, when we get this data, we need to send it to the block in the back end. And then we also need to make sure that it is passed on to be loaded to the text boxes. So to do in here, load block values. All right. And I think I'm going to cut this one here because we've done an awful lot. We've got it out of error state. So next time when we come back, we're going to need to, when we get that product back from Firestore, going to need to send all that data to our back end. We're going to need to send the existing product also to our back end for comparison purposes. And then we'll be able to actually see the values on the screen. We're going to need to modify our custom text field a little bit so that the controller has a property that we can pass to it, because we put our controller on our text field, our custom text field, and so we want to be able to pass a value to that. So that'll be next time. I know this one was a little heavy, but we'll wrap up this edit product process next time, and then we'll be pretty much done with the edit products and ready to wrap a few loose ends up here and move on to the customer experience. So that'll be next time on the series. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.